So yeah, thanks everyone for taking the time. Thanks for your interest in the awards program and submitting your projects. I'm very excited for this year's awards program and appreciate your participation and look forward to kind of seeing how everything shakes out. In the meantime, we do have a new kind of evaluation tool we're providing to assist the jury. And this is actually repurposing a tool that has been used by the AIA and developed by the AIA called the Common App. Just show of hands, since you're all on video, how many of you have submitted for an AIA award in the last year and have some familiarity with the Common App? Okay, so a couple of you, that's good. So we got some foundational knowledge. And maybe if we have time, we can talk through any kind of questions or issues that you've had in your previous use of the tool. We haven't modified it per se, we're just kind of leveraging it as a way to get the information about the sustainable criteria of each project kind of documented in a consistent format that will give the jury what they need to be able to better compare and evaluate projects on a kind of even apples to apples kind of basis. And based on the AIA's design criteria for excellence, which were previously the COAT guidelines, but they've adopted those through the Urgent Climate Resolution as now their guiding principles of design, which is a fantastic development, of course. But it kind of clearly lays out all the different criteria that they define as the design excellence and kind of weave into sustainability. And we'll see when we open the Common App that the sections of each of those. Oops, sorry, getting a login comment here. The sections of those follow that design criteria in terms of that framework. So I'm going to go ahead and do a share screen and pull that up. All right, so can folks now see the big red Excel file? Yeah, so this won't look exactly the same as when you open it. I don't have Excel on this machine. I have, I'm doing this on Google Sheets, so some of the functionality embedded in the macros and whatnot won't show up properly here, but they will for you. So the first thing you'll notice at the top is there's kind of this windrows diagram, if you will, that looks at all the different criteria, and it shows kind of a graphical radial diagram that the better your project performs in each of these criteria, the further to the outside of the diagram it will be. So like if you had a really good project from a sustainability standpoint that was performing really well in a number of areas, you'll see kind of like almost a circle or some kind of a, it'll be spread out. You may have something that spikes in and out to the middle if there's certain areas that you haven't really addressed in your design or just weren't really considerations. So that sort of thing. I see Kate's joined, so I'll probably hand over to her shortly, but in the meantime, just kind of finish giving the overview before we do that clean handoff, because I know Kate's got the full tool functionality, so you probably prefer to see her run through it. But nonetheless, that's kind of this diagram here. So graphically, it'll give you a quick assessment of kind of overall how your project performs. And that's a useful tool for the jury as well to kind of see at a glance how your project shakes out and ranks. Okay, so moving to the kind of main project input sections, and maybe this is a good opportunity for you to kind of, if you're queued up, Kate, to kind of take these sections here.
I am queued up.
Okay.
If you,
I will unshare and then maybe you can do.
Perfect. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm ready to share.
Okay. All right. It should be yours to grab.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you click the
there
share
it
screen.
Is. I got.
Yeah. Perfect.
I got. So here we go. First of all, apologies to everyone. One meeting runs late, then I use Google Docs instead of getting on Zoom. the usual excitement of coronavirus life. Anyhow, if I can pull this down, the basics are self-evident, and I would say the cost per square foot, it's perfectly fine to keep it confidential. Many clients prefer that.
Kate, could you
Yeah,
zoom in just a little bit, maybe, so the screen shares? Yeah,
absolutely.
maybe. Yeah.
Absolutely. Where am I? View. There we go. Zoom. Let's go 100 and yesterday 125% seemed to
I think
work
that
well.
looked pretty good. Yeah, when we kind of.
That works?
Perfect. That's better. Yes.
Okay. So, and that means I will go up a little bit to go to where you left off.
Yes.
So really, in many ways, the heart of your of this app is in this design for integration. This is where you can really tell the story in, and it's interesting, the AIA one is 500 words in each of these. The AIA Los Angeles one is 500 words in each of these. This is straight off the California Council one, and they're only giving 200 words. Ben, do we know which one we connected to? Was it with the local chapter?
Yes, it was with the local chapter. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And the other,
so it will be 500 words,
yeah.
Which is hard enough because all of us who know that whoever the author was who said that if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter was correct.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I'd add,
Dave
I don't think there's a hard cap. I don't think it will, you know, cut you off. It's just a guideline. So just keep it concise, but, you know, tell the story you need to tell.
Right. And I really want to, the storyline for the first one for the project summary and what the client's goals were should be very clear to everyone. The more difficult piece is choosing from the 10 measures of for design excellence. And I encourage you to go to AIA National COAT website. And before we leave today's meeting, I will post it on the side because they have really good descriptions. We've already been asked a question, for example, of someone who wanted to submit something really focused on construction waste management and thinking that there was no place in this common app for addressing that. Actually, under resources, in the more detailed description of the AIA Committee on the Environment or the AIA Design Excellence Framework, you will find that there are places where you can fit almost everything. And again, it's the goal on the jury's part is not to say, oh, you put it in the wrong place or you did something else like that. We're trying to learn your stories and what you did that really makes it work effectively for moving the bar forward and creating a sustainable future. So I tend to write these as kind of a continuous storyline. The project summary sets up the case, the client pieces sets up the goals and what the importance of it is, and then the performance statement says how we specifically address those challenges. That makes sense? Oops, too fast. One of the things that on equitable communities is you get another place for a narrative and a brief description of kind of, this is absolutely a triple E kind of definition of sustainability. It is environment, economics, and equity. And so really, these are the great places to describe social equity issues, inclusion, inclusive design, whether it's especially focused on accessibility, et cetera. The locations on the side here take you off to a tool that will allow you to put in your address of your project and get your walk score. So they try to make it as easy as possible to do all of those component pieces. Okay, where did my...
In those
Well, there's a
websites,
little
basically you
dress up.
type in your project address and it gives you the score. It's pretty straightforward.
Right. So the same for transit, the same for bike. And then I don't know if anyone will have a remote or rural site kind of piece, but certainly hope that many of us will be addressing the question of equitable communities. This is pretty, you know, these pull down menus. Takes a second or two. Come on, it should.
Yeah, you may need to click
So
it
you have
first
to
and then
click
they'll
on
pull
it
down.
first. I keep forgetting that, and then you can come over here. And was it a previously developed site? Yes or no. Took me at least a half an hour to figure that out the first time I did it. So hopefully this will save you some of that. So stormwater management on site. You click on it, and you go here, and it's just a yes or no. This is trying to set an even playing field and allow us to just know where things are. But then you get the opportunity to really, if you did something extraordinary that created a habitat for bees or you brought, you cleaned out an invasive species and you did something amazing, please do describe it here. So we're looking to be blown away. Same kind of question on potable water. You click on it, yes and no, on whether you reuse gray water, very straightforward, pretty simple, and then a brief description at the other end to get that right. I found this one somewhat more confusing, the design for economy. Partially, if I were to guess, the goal is, you know, you didn't build a 10,000 square foot McMansion when the typical housing in the community is 1,500 square feet. But it gives you the opportunity to describe what you did. So in a lot of our projects, big chunks of it are not occupied by people if it's infrastructure sort of project. So the square footage looks weird by comparison to the number of people. But if you were doing a wonderful elementary school, we kind of know how many square feet per kid is typical in elementary school kinds of construction. So is it smart? Does it try to right size the piece? If we go down to building for energy here, and David was going to help me describe how, because I have to admit, I don't do this. I mostly use my engineers to tell me what the KBTUs are for.
So I can pause at this point to kind of take over the screen and do kind of a run through of the documents available from the AIA that support this. First, though, I just want to acknowledge there's a comment in the chat noting that there are a few different forms of this existing. And as you noted, there's the local chapter form, there's the AIA state form. So, and maybe Ben can address this. Will applicants be provided the form when they submit their project application? Will there be a place to download it? If you could just clarify where and how you know, the applicants will get the appropriate form, I think that would address that question.
Yeah, the form is linked directly on the application page. So let me put the link here in the chat to the actual application for you, so it'll make things a little bit easier there.
David, great. You can take over.
Will do. Okay.
So I just put the link here in the chat to the actual application, and the form, there's a link there to the Common App.
Terrific. Okay, so just really quickly, I'll go ahead and just kind of go through. So when you get to this energy section, there's a link here, how to determine EUI from Title 24. When you click on that, it takes you to, let me see if I can move my Zoom window here. It'll take you to the AIA Design Awards site. And in the right-hand side here are a handful of links. So you're gonna want the non-residential calculator instructions or the residential calculator instructions, depending on the project type. And then based on that, you'll utilize the non-residential or residential calculator. It sounds kind of daunting because there's like calculations involved, but it's actually not that onerous a calculation. I'll kind of run you through that in a moment and where to find the information. Now, just really quickly, and I can't see screens now, but you know, show of hands, how many of you are submitting non-res? How many of you are submitting residential? So I guess the first question is anyone submitting a residential project here, or is it all non-res of the attendees on the call? And Ben, you can tell me, because I can't view the videos while I'm sharing, if anyone.
So you're asking if anyone's submitting non-residential?
Yeah, is it? Yeah, I'm presuming kind of at least.
I see no hands, or anyone can put in the chat, but I see nobody saying yes.
Nobody's saying yes to non-res?
Yeah.
Or res, okay. So everyone on the call is submitting for residential then? Is that?
I've got one hand up for submitting for residential.
Okay. All right.
2 hands up for residential.
Okay. So this is primarily a residential crowd then. Okay. Well, I'll pull that form up then. So that when you click on the residential instructions, it'll take you to this document, and it's I think a 6 or 8 page Word document. It's got kind of a basic description of what Eui metrics are. So for those of you not familiar with the terminology, Eui is energy use intensity, and it takes all the different fuel types that are used on a project site, and it normalizes them to a common metric of kBTU per square foot. And you don't have to worry about the conversion factors. All you need to know is how to find your kilowatt hour usage, which is your electric energy usage, and your therms usage on your Title 24 reports. And that will provide you with the necessary inputs to put in the calculator. So we don't need to go into those metrics. That's a pretty good overview. When you utilize, and the form will show you how to find the forms you need, the performance forms and the econ forms from your Title 24 report, whether you're doing it directly from Energy Pro, or if you're using CBAC Res as your compliance software, you should be able to pull those forms from it, or reach out to whoever prepared the documentation, whether that's a energy consultant or your mechanical engineer. They can provide this information to you. When you get to the Perf 1 report, you find that condition floor area. You find the energy use summary in the energy analysis results screen, and that will give you the kilowatt hours and the therms based on, and they're labeled in the columns under the different end uses, and that's going to be in the proposed design. And that will provide you with the inputs you need. Once you've gotten those out of your report, let me just pull this up real quick. So you'll basically, this is the calculator for low-rise residential. You'll have the conditioned area square footage that you'll input that should match what the report had. So your energy model in this diagram, or this calculator, should have the same input. You'll put in the kWh, you'll put in the therms, and then the calculator will automatically convert that based on the multiplier factors that are shown here to give you what the project EUI values are. If you have solar production, and that's what these screens were showing here that I was kind of going down to. So say that you have a tool. Generally, you'll either have a report prepared by the engineer who sized the system, or you may have output from like a PV Watts tool, which is the free Department of Energy tool that is available online, and you provide your site location, your array size, orientation, etc., and it will provide your annual production. So if you do have renewables, you would provide that here in your photovoltaic production, and then it'll calculate for you what the net EUI would be, which is taking out that renewable production, offsetting from your base usage. This document will walk you through all the different places to find everything in your software reports. So I know it's kind of racing through it, but it is there and available for you to download and compare to what your output is. And there are also some screenshots showing where the outputs will be put. Once you get your calculator results, you can plug them in the Common app. Basically, the benchmark EUI will automatically be populated as the Architecture 2030 benchmark. Once you put in your square footage and your project type and climate zone, it will populate your benchmark EUI there. You'll also get the estimated EUI based on code when you enter your code vintage. And those will provide your baselines. Then under your modeled performance, you'll put your predicted EUI based on the modeled results, both the gross and the net numbers that we showed from that calculator. And it'll figure out the rest as far as what's your reduction relative to benchmark. Did you meet the 2030 challenge? You also have the opportunity that if you had metered results, metered data from your energy, you can sum up the utility bills and put in the actual net EUI. You would still use the calculator, but rather than getting it from your modeled results, you would get it from your utility data, whether that's a BMS system or your whole building metered results. So obviously, for the built projects, that may be available. For the unbuilt projects, you would be using the modeled performance. And it's real important, as Kate has pointed out in the previous sections, to utilize this energy narrative area to provide any highlights of the strategies utilized in order to get you to the outcomes that you are demonstrating with your project submission. I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions, and feel free to take yourself off mute if you want to just ask them directly. It's a relatively informal group here. All right, hearing none. I did want to point out, for those that may be submitting non-residential, the calculator is very much similar. The walkthrough, although the forms will look a little different, is very similar. The biggest difference is you'll have conditioned versus unconditioned inputs, because typically with commercial, you'll have that in the energy report, and that's factored in. Residential, it's pretty much, garages and other things are largely ignored. In terms of that energy use picture, it's pretty marginal, but that's effectively the only real difference between the two different calculators. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it back to Kate. We can always come back to this if questions come up before we conclude.
Absolutely. So I will go back to sharing my screen. And so we're done. Dave gave us all a good, fast dive into energy. With residential, I hope you have operable windows, but did you do a glazing study? Is yes and no. Operable windows, for those of us who do non-residential, that's a big deal, whether we're giving that. And all of these are pretty straightforward. I do think that Dave and I were both talking about the fact that it's interesting that the red list chemicals that are dangerous for human health don't seem to fall in this category. They are referenced in the resources category down here. So while this one starts with embodied carbon and other pieces, it also includes local and recycled materials, and it also includes, wow, this is different. The other one I was looking at absolutely had.
Yeah, it looks like they shifted it up into the wellness section. So it goes back to, Christian's question as to the version of the form. So it kind of answers that question. I mean, I guess broadly, that's just kind of a portal to be able to say that, if you have other strategies related to wellness, indoor air quality, et cetera, that aren't covered in these specific pull downs, feel free to utilize that free form text area to highlight any of those strategies. There will certainly be projects pursuing things like well certification that will have a real deep dive in a lot of these areas that aren't necessarily covered by some of the stock inputs. So, just utilize that free form area to communicate those items to the jury.
And in my opinion, put them up as one of your choices of 3, because if that's the really important thing that you focused on, you were designing a home for someone who has hypersensitivity or other pieces, what a great thing to be showcasing in your description. And I will say, for those of us who are old enough to have used LEED version 1, and we're now into LEED version 4, things will change. This will evolve, but it'll give us a more even playing field for analyzing and comparing projects and understanding the progress we're making. So don't despair over it. Use it to tell your story. Really deep dives into embodied carbon, whether it's a C3 tool or Tally or other things, are a lot of very hard work. This gives you the tool right here on the side, goes directly. And are you seeing it go to this? Because I was showing a program and I was worried as to whether I was still showing this from the job.
Yeah, we're still seeing the Common App, the Excel screen.
Then let me go share slightly differently, and that will take care of it. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Come on, Gobi. Stop sharing for a second and let me share my desktop instead of my program.
There it is.
Okay, so this gives you, again, a very broad brushstroke analysis of carbon in terms of total square feet above ground, below ground, the overall type of the structure, what ecoregion you're in. It gives you some credit for landscape and landscaping kinds of pieces, and then it choose out a number with the calculator. So it's not a deep dive into embodied carbon, but we are all paying for, and literally, if I go back to my friend over here, I simply clicked on this link that's right here. It took me directly to that page. It's very simple. I do like the embodied carbon resources that kind of, for all of us who are committed to sustainability, it will take you to a place where you really talk about why we care about it and what we can do and other parts and pieces that truly matter, 10 things you can do right now. So as David was saying, there were people who had put in an adaptive reuse project and didn't claim their embodied carbon benefits. Adaptive reuse obviously is one of the best ways to minimize embodied carbon.
Yeah, and that
concrete. Go ahead.
The tool doesn't really capture that web tool, the spilled carbon site. So that's something where if you look at the Common App, there is a pull down. Are you reusing an existing structure or infrastructure? If you select yes there, by all means, utilize the free-form text box to be able to provide some detail and context into your strategy around that, so you can highlight what you did, because it doesn't really show up in the metrics otherwise unless you did an alternative tool like Athena or Tally or whatever.
Right. So, so I encourage everyone to go. These are really pretty good, basic, important first steps. So it's really cool to see what we can do. So yeah, go away. I want to go back to you. So this design for resources in this version focuses very much on carbon and embodied carbon through the primary building system. I think the one that we clicked the link to still shows the chemicals of concern there in the resource piece. You know, wherever it falls, just address the questions of how you address healthy materials.
And if there's a one that sorry, I was just going to say, and if there's a strategy or an area that wasn't really a consideration, it's fine to note that, right? You know, not every project is going to do everything, and it's perfectly fine to just say, you know, not really a significant area of study or, you know, implementation.
You can be as simple as typing NA. So, you know, not as Dave says, not every client lets us explore everything. And so it's important, you know, to watch and explore the pieces we can. The design for change is really starting to think about the fact that so much of our building materials ends up in the waste stream. And we maybe are starting to think about design for disassembly, but also this is another place. I recently was on an AIA jury where someone took a no longer used jail and transformed it into a courthouse by taking it down to the structural system and demolishing some of it, but they were able to reduce the embodied carbon significantly, but through adaptive reuse. So I think these are really exciting. And then they ask for resiliency strategies. As we all know, between fire, which we're definitely seeing, floods, sea level rise, and everything else, that can be an aspect. So again, tell a story if you have one, and don't worry if you don't have stories for all of these. In the post-occupancy evaluation, I don't know about you, but I have the damnedest time getting my clients to actually participate in post-occupancy evaluations. So that's hard, but if you did do that, that's great. Otherwise, if there were specific things that you researched, use this as a place to describe the things where you stretched what you were doing, whether it was prefabrication or using a prototype material that, you know, really reduces embodied carbon or does something exciting. We're looking for it. We want you to win. We want you to tell your stories in ways that will be intriguing and we can all learn from them. That make sense? And by the way, I don't know about you guys, but I don't promise 200-year buildings, even for my concrete, steel, and heavy timber buildings, because clients might come back in 200 years and claim it. So I really think that the goal of this is to dive a bit deeper into sustainability. And if all of your focus is the goal of our awards program is to award completed projects that maybe deal with all of the pieces, or maybe deal with 50% of the components, but do it magnificently. There isn't going to be one answer, but you will notice that we also had an opportunity for a focused one. So if you're submitting on one focused, magnificently innovative kind of strategy, use more of your space and time to address that, okay? Again, please unmute yourself if you have any questions. I did post the link to the AIA's Framework for Design Excellence in the chat box, so you can just copy that over and go and explore at your convenience. Does this help make it a little less painful?
Thumbs up, thumbs down, questions?
I have a few questions, actually, if I can jump in.
Absolutely.
So a lot of my questions come in with between the presentation and the entry form and the AIA Common App, there's going to be a lot of overlapping information. And I just want to know or get clarity on how the jury wants to receive this information. Is it okay if they're reading the same narrative somewhere in one part of the application versus somewhere else? I know word counts vary and everything, but it will essentially be the same information.
So we are making this up as we go along, let's be honest. And you're quite correct. It's not, your energy strategy isn't going to change from one form to another form. What we're hoping is we will evaluate whether it was valuable to have the Common App, and maybe we simplify the remainder of the application next year. So I would say be perfectly comfortable cutting and pasting the same information more than once.
And I would also add, if it's all part of the same submission, you can refer back to your PowerPoint. You say, see slide X of PowerPoint if it's all covered there and there's graphics and everything. Keep in mind that this was developed by the AIA as a way to supplement the design awards, which historically didn't really factor in sustainability criteria in a meaningful way. So this tool was developed as a way to provide that information in a very consistent format with metrics that could be, apples to apples as a supplement to the traditional jury system. This is, with the Sustainable Innovation Awards for U.S. Green Building Council, sustainability is the core criteria. So to your point, there is a bit of overlap, but, I think to be able to cross-reference for the sake of brevity, there's nothing wrong with that as long as the information's there and they can connect the breadcrumbs.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else, Susanna?
One more question about anonymity. I know that we're not supposed to reveal our firm name on the AIA Common App, but is it fine if it's in the presentation and the entry form?
No, I think that the firm name should not be on the PowerPoint slides at all.
Okay.
But the client name, and for example, if there was client signage, that's completely appropriate. But we are trying to be more fair by keeping it anonymous.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to blur out the, Kaiser Permanente, sign on the overall building. Yeah, it's just, yeah.
And even the AIA doesn't require that. They just say, don't put your firm name on anything.
Right.
Okay, great.
Other questions? Feedback? Anything?
Thank you for making this walkthrough. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, good. Okay.
Thank you for considering applying. We're really, we want good people to submit good projects. And by the way, one thing I didn't say, but since this is being recorded and hopefully will be made available to others, is it doesn't have to be a building. It could be a master plan. Hello, kitty. My kitty is not participating this moment. It could be a study that you did for a client about how they might, I don't know, retrofit all of their buildings with new energy systems, or it could be a deep dive into an innovative building material or building system. We're looking to celebrate the best of what we're doing in 2020 that is moving us to a sustainable future. So we're trying to expand the reach.
And the deadline is the 30th, correct? That remains like that?
Ben?
Yeah, we are about to send an announcement today for the extension. So the deadline will be November 8th. So yeah, if that is
You heard it
helpful.
here first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
And tell
Yeah.
all your friends.
All right, any other, it sounds like no other questions then. I don't know, Fernanda, or Ben, what's that?
I just, Jacques hasn't asked questions, and is everything good?
Everything's good on my end. I'm just over here taking all the notes and just jotting it down for our submission. Because I think my team, they have an idea of what they want to submit, but I mean, I could always come back with other ideas because I think they feel boxed in on what they should be submitting right now. So this gives some clarity.
Good.
Great.
So Ben and Fernanda, I don't know if you have any other parting thoughts or closing comments.
Hi, this is Fernanda. I think Ben needed to leave for another
Okay.
meeting. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to both of you. This is great. It's like first time we're actually hosting this session, and it's very helpful. Even for me to understand when people call me with questions. So this session is being recorded. I'll make sure you guys receive by email in case you want to review it and send to your peers, to your network. And also, if you have any additional questions, please send to my email. I'm putting my email address here in the chat. If I don't know how to answer, I will ask the experts here.
All right. Good luck. And thank you for participating.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.